Hello, my name is Colin Hoffman. I'm a current student at the Community College of Denver Honoraria campus. I'm a sociology researcher and aspiring science communicator. Today I'm joined by Mr. Ken Wagner, Executive Director of the Colorado Office of Judicial Performance Evaluation. Thank you very much for having us, Ken. How do you describe what you do and your title within that office?
Well, thanks, Colin. It's great to be here, and I'm the head of the Office of Judicial Performance Evaluation, which really oversees the judicial performance program here in Colorado. We serve or support the commissions on judicial performance that are in each of the judicial districts and one statewide level. So really work with 231 volunteers around the state who evaluate our judges and provide information to the voters.
Excellent. So with judicial candidacy, when we as voters see them on a ballot, what criteria or research do we have to be able to judge and evaluate and therefore start voting and choosing which judges to retain?
Sure. Well, let me start with the history a little bit because it puts it in context. So from statehood until 1966, Colorado actually had contested, politically charged judicial elections. So judges had to apply or be nominated by political parties. They had to run campaigns, contest each other in the process, and then be really elected to the bench. But in 1966, the voters in Colorado decided they wanted to take politics out of judge selection. So we created what's called the Missouri Plan, or the merit selection of judges in Colorado. So initially, judges are appointed to their positions. So when there's a judicial vacancy, the judges have to apply, or interested candidates apply for the position. And then there's a whole nother commission. There's a nominating commission that's made up of non-lawyers and lawyers. And they actually vet the candidates and then pass on the best 2 to 3 candidates to the governor. And the governor's office then goes through the same process of vetting and then makes an appointment. But the governor has to do that within 15 days of getting the names of the candidates. And it has to be out of those names that go up to the judge or the governor. So that's how a judge gets appointed in Colorado. But now we have this other backside part of it, which is voters still get a chance to weigh in, offer their opinion about the judge's performance through elections, but they're considered retention elections. Okay. So the only question on the ballot is, should Judge so-and-so be retained? And if more than 50% of the voters say yes, the judge retained, they stay in their position. If less than 50% of the folks vote for the judge, then the judge is out of the office at the end of their term, and the nominating process starts all over again.
Okay. So the judicial offices and the governor will appoint judges, and then we as voters get to decide whose job that we like that they did and whether or not to retain them for the next cycle, yes?
Correct.
Excellent. Correct. So what criteria and metrics are measured for judges' performances?
Sure. So to kind of fill in where judicial performance comes in, so from 1966 until 1990, essentially, there was really not a whole lot of information for voters to look at or understand what's happening. I mean, judges are really prohibited from saying a whole lot about anything when they're campaigning, if they were campaigning. So there's not a whole lot of information for voters to get to. So the legislature created offices of or commissions on judicial performance. And what those folks do is they look at, it's a set criteria. So it's integrity, legal knowledge, communication skills, judicial temperament or demeanor, administrative performance, and then service to the legal profession and the public. So those are kind of the base criteria that you were asking about that we've really sort of decided is the metrics or hallmark of a good judge. And then the performance commissions actually look at survey data. So one of the things my office does is we survey people who have appeared in front of the judges on an ongoing basis. We have a report written about it. So we look at the cumulative information on the judge from people who have been in their courtrooms. We ask the judges to submit written decisions. They also do a self-evaluation. Our commissioners do courtroom observations. I think I've already said review written decisions. They interview other interested parties, and then they ultimately interview the judge. And in the end, they come up with a 500-word narrative that makes a recommendation about whether the judge meets performance standards or not, and then explains in 500 words why they thought the judge met those standards or didn't meet those standards, and then provides a little bit of information for the voters on the judge's background and experience, those kind of things. Those narratives are published on knowyourjudge.com website. So anybody can go out and find their ballot and look at the judges that are going to be on their ballot. And as well as it's published or printed in the voter information guide, which is oftentimes called the Blue Book. And so everybody can go in and look at their judges that will be on their ballot, look at our opinions, and either make their decision based on that information or go a little bit further. The one thing I will say is the knowyourjudge.com website, we also have those survey reports. So people can go out and actually look at what people have said about the judges' performance in those evaluations, and then also look at what the commissions have done.
So that's direct feedback from experts in the field as well as citizens that are interacting with the judges. Is there, from the Know Your Judge website, is there a numerical grade or a letter grade or out of 5 stars, anything like that we can directly look at?
We don't. We actually,
Okay.
Each judge is evaluated on their own performance, so we're not necessarily doing comparatives. And so really the standard is they either meet performance standards or they don't. To be able to have a designation of not meeting performance standards, a majority of the commission members would have to make that determination. So every commissioner weighs in on what they think the judge's performance is. So the first line in the narrative you'll see is, the judge so-and-so, the Commission on Judicial Performance finds Judge so-and-so meets performance by 11-0 or 7-3.
Okay.
Because there's 10 members on each of the commissions. The majority of those members are non-attorneys, but citizen members who are appointed.
Excellent. Okay. So that office was specific to the Colorado Office of Judicial Evaluation and Performance. Is that unique to Colorado, or is that something that is implemented elsewhere as well?
Sure. There are about 16 states around the country that do some form of judicial performance evaluation. Every state does it a little bit differently, and every state really elects their judges or appoints their judges differently. So some states, judges are appointed for life, essentially. There's no participation from the voters as far as an election. Other states do contested elections still, so same thing that we used to have where, politics come in, money comes in, campaigning comes in. And then there are other states that do nonpartisan elections. So it can still be a contested election, but the candidates would run not on a party basis. They would just be on the ballot and voted in. And then states like ours where we do just the retention question, and ultimately either the judge stays in their position or they are removed, and then the nomination process starts again. So it's, the key here is really that we're trying to take politics out of the position of a judge. It still gives voters an opportunity to comment on the judge's performance through elections. It allows the judges to be more independent in their work as a judge. And then ultimately, the other thing that our commissions do is we provide judges ongoing feedback about their performance. So even when they're not on the ballot for an election, we're still doing evaluations, providing them feedback, and hopefully the judges are, improving their skills and their performance as a judge overall. So it really is a nice mix, a win kind of on both sides.
And it's a living system where there's constant feedback in that, like a QC person, and then getting reviews from internal, and then 5-star customer reviews coming from the voters, whether or not they did a good job.
Right. And the other thing that's kind of nice about our system is, the judges get their evaluations before they have to make a decision to stand for retention. So kind of separate from our office, they have to file an affidavit of candidacy basically with the Secretary of State's office. And they can sort of look at our evaluations before that and really make a determination if they want to stay on the bench or not.
Okay.
And so we sort of see this mix of judges who are meeting performance, some decide not to stand, and it really sets up a nice practice for us.
Excellent. So, as voters, as people, there are so many issues that can be on the headlines, on the news, in coffee shop talk that may define someone as a voter, as a citizen, as a person. How does the judiciary body in Colorado affect day-to-day lives or in the society of our communities?
Sure. Well, judges are settling disputes among citizens on a daily basis. This is where people come to have their disputes settled. We're handling criminal matters, large numbers of those at various different levels, making decisions about people's lives. We're handling divorce cases. When people are deciding to end their marriages, it's coming through our court system. So, people's lives are affected quite substantially by judges on an ongoing basis. And we really do want our judges to be able to sit and hear the facts and apply them to the law, apply the laws to the facts of those cases, and come up with fair and equitable decisions for all of those people who are involved in court. Now, not all of us go to court, so maybe that's why we see this disparity of people not knowing who their judges are. And one of the criticisms about our elections of judges in Colorado is you don't know that much about them. But if you've ever been to court, you know an awful lot about your judge and your opinions of how they handled your case and whether you're satisfied or not. And it's interesting because a lot of times people will have decisions go against them. But if a judge has handled it in a fair and equitable way, you felt you had your day in court. Really the research shows that people are satisfied. They feel like they had their day in court. And that's really what state courts really are about.
Hopefully we have the sentinels of the judges shaping the society we're in without directly interfering it. Again, like you said, if we're not on a first name basis with a judge, hi Frank, I know, 6 months, first door on the left. So one of the questions too, we were speaking about visibility. One of the most visible topical representations of judges and courts and judicial integrity that we have as citizens is the Supreme Court, which is on a federal level. What can voters do, or does it affect us if we as citizens disagree or agree with models and precedents set by the Supreme Court that we can then affect here on a local level?
Yeah, and I would say for the most part that doesn't really apply.
Okay.
And one of the questions we often will get is, what's a county court judge's judicial philosophy? Well, county court judges aren't making law. They're not overruling the law of the land in any way. They are applying the law to the facts of the cases that are before them on an individual basis for everybody. And so, we kind of get tied up, I think, in trying to assess every judge in the country from the basis of what's happening at the Supreme Court or what's happening in the nomination process that goes through Congress. I mean, that's really not the situation we have here. And the other way to sort of think about it, one of the nice things about a merit selection system is, we're really appointing the best and the brightest who have applied to those judgeships. And then we do performance evaluations on them and help judges understand what they're doing right, what they're doing wrong, whether they should be in this position. And then on top of that, we still let the voters weigh in with elections. And so we are always it's a beautiful checks and balance on how they're performing without really getting into the weeds about are they, supporting one policy or another, because that's really not what they're about. They're really about settling cases for individuals in the courtroom in a timely manner that's understandable to the world. And that's, I guess, another way to say what do voters get out of this is that we want consistency. We want rule of law. And really that's what our trial court judges do on a daily basis. You should have an idea of what the outcome of your case is when you go in, say, for a traffic violation. And you could probably, talk to other people and they would all have the similar or same sentence.
Hopefully.
So
So on our ballots, we see the judges' names and whether or not to retain them. As you guys, as the third party for the judicial performance evaluation, use the merit-based system to provide your feedback that we can research as voters for that. On the ballot, is there any other criteria or party affiliations for the judges that is immediately visible?
no,
Okay.
not at all. So it literally is, the only question you will see is, should Judge so-and-so, and we'll just say, should Judge Jacqueline Brown be retained? Yes or no? And there's no party affiliation. That's on purpose. If somebody called our office and asked if the judge was a Democrat or a Republican or an independent, I couldn't tell them. I don't know. And that's really designed, again, to take that pressure out, keep judges from having to have a party platform or something of that nature. They really get to sit and do their job as a judge, and we're evaluating them on their performance as a judge. And so I would say, when voters are interested in getting information, great place to start is knowyourjudge.com.
Okay.
Or go to the Blue Book. And these volunteers work super long hours and do an awful lot of work. The commission here in Denver had over 22 judges that they were evaluating this year. And they did a great job and have given good recommendations to the voters. Now, can voters do more? Sure, they should do all the research they want to. But this is a great place to start. And for the most part, in our sort of looking and polling voters after elections, people find it to be a valuable process and a very valuable information that helps and drives their voting.
Absolutely. I was asking some of my friends if they'd had any questions or stuff I may ask either on camera or off camera about the judge selection system. And I'd had multiple of them who were like, oh yeah, I just go to the website. And I was like, you're already ahead of me.
There we
That's
go.
excellent. That's exactly what we want, for it to permeate
Exactly.
the social consciousness in Colorado.
And we've really tried to make it, pretty straightforward. So when you come to our website, you can, select your county, and it'll tell you all of the judges that are on your ballot. And every voter in Colorado is going to vote on 8 Colorado Court of Appeals judges this year. So that's a statewide. So everybody in the state votes on Court of Appeals judges. We don't have any Supreme Court justices up for retention this year.
Okay.
And then there'll be a set after that of district court judges. So you kind of have to know which judicial district you live in, because many of our districts are multi-county, and then your local county court judge. And if you don't see their name on our website, then there's no candidate, no judge up for retention in that position.
Okay. So the website only has judges that are up for retention in that given cycle. Is there a way
Correct.
to see the evaluations of currently sitting judges?
Sure, you can go back
Okay.
and look at evaluations. They are on 2 different websites. They're available back to 1990.
Okay, but they are on record and they're archived for citizens to review.
Yep.
Excellent.
In fact, many people, as they're going to court, will come on our website and look up their judge, so they have an idea about what their judge they're going to appear in front of. And it's really actually a secondary resource for people going to our courthouses. They get to know a little bit about their judge before they stand up in front of them.
Excellent. What moving forward into the future, what would you hope that the public starts to learn about the judicial selection process, or see it evolve or go to other areas of legislation that voters can vote on, or things like that? What would your vision be for the future for the public to be aware of these systems?
Well, I think part of it is our job to do things like this, is
Yes,
to come
please.
out and get our voice out there a little bit more. So, we have social media posts that are going out all over the state. We have television and radio commercials, both in English and Spanish. We're trying to do as much outreach as we possibly can to get people to feel comfortable with our process. And I think you raised a good point before when you were saying, most of us sort of think about what's happening in the U.S. Supreme Court and the tensions that's out there, and people are being polled on trust and confidence about that court. I think if we did the same thing, in fact, there's a number of organizations that do polling for trust and confidence in courts. People really have fairly good confidence in the work that we're doing at a state court level. And we try and promote that and discuss what those judges are doing well and what they need to work on in our evaluations. And if people can just sort of get on board and follow those recommendations, I think we're in good shape.
Excellent. Any other resources that you know or would want to apprise the audience of?
I think we're the primary, so knowyourjudge.com.
You got it. Thank you very much, Ken Wagner. Appreciate your time, sir. Thank you so much.
It's my pleasure. Thank you, Colin.